Well, welcome back from the Capitol building right here. Okay. All right. So if you look at the hard copy of Worksheet 19, you'll see that the first half is really not about mathematics. It's about what happened in actual history, the history of the United States concerning the apportionment rules. All right. So, and because these are fact-based, I will give you the information so you can find out, you can figure out what really happened, starting with the veto by George Washington, the very first veto of the United States. And then I will lead you to what is being used currently as we decide how many representatives each state gets. All right, and then the second half of the hard copy of Worksheet 19 is what you will be answering on the online version of a worksheet in lesson 19. All right, so I hope it's clear. The last half has to do with some math, and so you will have to solve some problems. All right, so the first thing you should do is to print out the worksheet, the hard copy of Worksheet 19, and fill in the first half with me in this video. And then the last half is for you to work in terms of the mathematics, and then you will be ready for the online worksheet for number 19, which is only the last half of the hard copy of Worksheet 19. All right, so here we go. A little lesson on history. All right, so in the lesson itself, we learned about the Jefferson's method as well as Hamilton's method. Hamilton's method came first, and it was presented to both the Senate and the House of Representatives way back in the 1700s. And of course, as we mentioned, George Washington vetoed it. All right, so this is where the story begins. This will be a rather brief video, but take a look at what happened in 1791. The then Congress approved Hamilton's method. Okay, so this was an easy one, okay, and it was no-brainer. So yeah, that makes sense. And so they decided to do that, but the following year, President Washington vetoed Hamilton's method. Right, and he actually, this is in the historical record, he says, I have thought about this for a long time. I'm paraphrasing, and I believe that there is a better method, blah, blah, blah. And of course, he was preferring his friend Jefferson over Jefferson's enemy, sort of an opponent, Hamilton. Okay, and then so from 1792 to 1840, this is, like 50 years, Jefferson's method was used. It's interesting, these things just really happen based on personality, but hey, that's real history. Okay, and then after all these people, Hamilton and Jefferson and Washington were long gone. From 1840 to 1850, guess what? Came back. Actually, the topic came back, and they didn't actually go back to Hamilton's, but they went to a third method by Webster. Okay, this is the Webster that's famous for his dictionary. Webster's method was used. We didn't study this. You can read about this in the book if you'd like. This is a third method that was discussed. And so Webster's method was used for 10 years, all right? And then something happened in 1850, and I'm not exactly sure what the detail was, but in 1850, Hamilton's method made a comeback, and Hamilton's method was used for 50 years, okay? Even though within those 50 years, all right, so lots of things happened between 1850 and 1900. Notably, and probably the biggest event in the history of this country, which is the Civil War. And the Civil War ended in 1865, but soon after that, one of the southern states realized, hey, we are losing out on something, right? That was called the Alabama paradox, covered in the lesson number 19. And that happened in 1880. So suddenly they realized, in the span of the last half of the 19th century, realized, hey, something is wrong. We really should fix this. So they abandoned Hamilton's method in 1900, and starting in 1900, they began to use, or they went back to the previous method, due to Webster. Right? So Webster's method made a comeback also, and it was used for about 40 years. Okay, now in 1940, this is, of course, during World War II, a few new methods came up, and then in 1941, a new method called the Hill. It was developed by two people, Hill and Huntington. So the method by Hill and Huntington, appropriately called the Hill-Huntington method, was agreed upon, and then they decided to use this new method, which is a rather complicated method. I believe it's also mentioned in the book. You can even look up Hill-Huntington method online, and you can find that this actually uses what is known as the geometric mean as opposed to the average or the arithmetic mean to figure out these things. And it really sort of favors the smaller states. But the Hill-Huntington method replaced the Webster method. And so this is the method currently used today, okay, in 2020. And so this is a little more complicated than the other methods, right? But this is considered today as the best method to be used to determine how many representatives each state is supposed to get. All right, so the last half is what you will have to answer in the online version of Worksheet 19. And so try to do this on your own first. You can discuss this question with your friends, but this one problem, okay, is divided up into like 3 sub-problems in the online version of Worksheet 19. And so that's your job to do before you get into homework for this section. All right, have a great day, and I will see you later.